believe we are.
It says recording.
Yep.
Is it really? Oh, are we recording? You get to keep this in there.
I was literally nodding off.
Unless someone can edit.
I can edit this.
Trim this. Trim the front out here.
Yeah, I can do it if you don't know how.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Paradigm Shift podcast. I am your host, Nick. Today we are joined by Heather, Afra, and Chuck. We've been gone for a while. I don't think I've done a Paradigm podcast in like a month now, so it's been a little while. So today we're going to be talking about the new administration and what Biden should prioritize for policies and stuff like that. And then we can also talk about whatever you guys want, but the inauguration or any other pressing issues that you feel are, especially important. With that said, who wants to start?
Anybody
Don't
want
everybody?
Chuck does. Chuck wants to start.
Chuck, you want to start?
It ought to be someone who's actually. It ought to be somebody who's actually fond of Biden starts.
I mean, I don't have too much to say simply because I just feel so much relief right now. Politics seems a little bit boring again, and it's just so I have nothing burning to say because of it. Like we're here and like, all right, it's cool. I'm not terribly happy with every single thing, but it's not like it was with Trump, not at all.
Yeah, I'm really happy.
There is a blessed.
Oh, what? I think we have like a lag or there's something and we're not hearing when each other starts talking. I'm sorry.
I think I've got crap internet. I'm going to log out and log back in to see if I'm a little closer because I get the feeling I'm about 8 seconds behind you guys. So I'll be back.
So I was just saying that I agree with Heather. Things are calm, relatively, and a little bit more boring. And I think I haven't really been watching the news much. I've been reading some of it very selectively because I'm kind of trying to avoid the force of the ongoing scandal involving the last administration and any stories that come out of it. And I kind of resolved to, if I'm going to find out about any of that stuff in any kind of depth, then I'll just kind of wait until the hearings begin and see what they focus on with that. And really, it's true that if you take him out of the equation, things seem relatively boring, but I think that that's going to only last for a little while. There are interesting things going on, and we're still like in the middle of a really, really bad pandemic, which is already starting to be the kind of thing like, what are you doing about it, Democrats? Right? It's been like 4 days. So there's a lot. And the cabinet, my opinion on the cabinet, and I'll just say this to start out, is I think that he's really like pandering to certain groups who like things like, expertise and experience, and even people who work their way up from, relatively modest beginnings. So I hope that works out for him.
That's a nice blessing. I mean, in progressive realms, there's already complaints that it's too many people from the establishment and people that have been in different positions over the years. And it was just like, oh, I'm going to take all these people who were there for Obama in different areas and plug them in here.
But that's not everyone. That's a few people, and it seems to be a good mix. of those who were in the Obama administration and people who are new. That doesn't mean, rock stars from the Obama administration and household names from the left. It just means that, you're going to have some kind of diversity in the cabinet, which I think that you really need in the middle of an economic crisis like this. He didn't choose. It doesn't seem like the choices are consistent across the board. It seems like we have people in positions where they're not just giving less interesting positions or cabinet positions to people who are popular but have no experience, and the really important stuff to the super establishment. It seems to be, from what I've been seeing, like a very even mix. And I'm interested in the Secretary of the Interior and the Secretary of Education in particular, because looking at their bios, you're really talking about people who worked their way up and worked really, really hard. And if you look closely into what they've done, they are qualified for this. They do have a lot of experience. So I'm talking about Deb Haaland and
Michael Cordova.
Yeah, Miguel Cardona. So
It's Miguel Cardona.
And what a wonderful change Miguel Cardona is going to make to begin with. Having any experience in education is pretty good.
Yes, absolutely. I'm kind of excited about that.
Chuck, you want to throw your 2 cents in?
Yeah, what the heck? It'll be worth every penny too, I promise. The what I see so far with Biden is, I think, like what we talked about earlier, a sort of a blessed sense of normalcy. We are debating normal political things again, and hopefully it'll be like that for some time. We're not debating about or talking about a once in a generation narcissistic president who says the oddest and most impolitic things. We've got someone in there who's, if he's wrong, it'll be wrong within normal parameters. So we can at least agree on that. And there's a good sense of normalcy there. So far, the only thing that Biden's done that has really surprised me to this point, of all the executive orders he signed day one, I didn't put the kibosh on the Keystone Pipeline as quickly as he did. I didn't realize it kind of ranked that high up on his personal list of priorities. I knew it would be something that he would, could possibly do, but I didn't think that would be one of those day one things. And again, as someone who, loves jobs, that's an awful lot of jobs that you're sacrificing there. And I've never had it adequately explained to me why Keystone, that pipeline is particularly odious as compared to the other 350 pipelines we have. But again, that's a debate for another day. In terms of Biden coming out and whacking that on day one, I was a little surprised at that. Otherwise, like you guys said, in terms of the cabinet appointments, he no real surprises there. Some well-qualified people we're going to agree with, people we're going to disagree with. But again, within normal parameters. We're not dealing with someone way the hell out here who's saying, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
I don't think we'll have to worry about that with any of Biden's appointees. At least I hope we don't have to worry about that. But again, as someone who really hates all politicians, all the pomp of the circumstance of the whole inauguration thing and reading people going, yay, yay, yay. I don't care if you're going yay, yay, yay for Trump or Biden. Fuck it. I don't give a shit about either one of them. So I've been crankier than usual lately, if you can believe that.
Oh, really?
The celebrations will be over now-ish, really. So you'll start to feel better.
Somebody said the first off was this was the honeymoon, because I referenced an MSN reporter who was talking about his inauguration speech like it was from the 146th Psalm. No, I just thought, boy, what a marked contrast we have to the press reaction to the previous president. The press, oddly enough, acted like the press ought to act when Trump was in there. They were curious. They were asking the tough questions. Yes, they made an ass of themselves, but boy, I just fear they're going to become collectively incurious here, and it's going to show. Unfortunately, though, again, there's that phrase again, within normal parameters. That's the one thing I think we have, hopefully, to look forward to the next 4 years.
So I think Biden should prioritize two things. I think he should prioritize the COVID stuff, and I think he should prioritize getting politics back on track, normalizing things a little bit more, trying to get at the root of what is going on in our country, because there's obviously some major cultural, social, political issues going on, and try to do some mending on that front. I feel strongly that this policy stuff, not that it's not extremely important and not all of it, but the more extreme stuff should be put on the back burner as secondary to, trying to amend those political, social stuff, relationships. I thought the inaugural speech was extremely good. I think it set the right tone. I get a little, I'm not necessarily persuaded by the unity stuff, but I think that the context that he phrased it in was especially convincing. So, meaning that he said, we don't have to all agree, right? And nor are we ever going to. And this country, besides the obvious evil other stuff, was founded on disagreement, right? Federalists, anti-federalists, etc. We have to get back to a place where we can have a conversation about immigration or healthcare or something like that, where the other person isn't considered immediately evil. And I know I've written a lot about this, and you guys probably tired of hearing me preach, but that's what I do, so I can't help it. I was coming home today. I ran, and so some days while I'm in my car for extended periods of time, I'll listen to like speeches by various people, and I was listening to this MLK speech, this really passionate speech called The Blueprint. And as I was doing it, I think it was probably about 8 pickup trucks drove by me going the other way with big, huge Trump flags and Confederate flags and all of that stuff. And I was, Jesus.
In Rhode Island?
In Rhode Island. Well, I live in a rural area. It's not really, so like.
Not really a Confederate state though, is it?
They don't care. Or no.
They do it here too. They do it here too.
But it really is. I mean, it's really a rural urban thing now more than a southern northern thing, right? Yeah. I mean, you can see that in Georgia is a great example of that. That's where I think we need to go. I think it's really a mistake to kind of focus on trying to pass these really extreme things, because all that's going to do is exacerbate the division. And I understand, like, we're not dealing with reasonable people here, but there are still things that'll make it worse. And I think that we should at least attempt to try and reconcile some of that, and maybe not necessarily ever be able to persuade the hardcore Trump people, but we could probably persuade some of the reluctant Trump supporters, because 74 million people didn't vote for Trump because they love him. A lot of, probably several millions of people voted for Trump because they saw him as a better option, because of you could call it a misunderstanding of what the Democrats are or whatever, but it's not because they love who he is necessarily. So that's I don't know if you guys want to respond to that. If not,
that was a whole bunch of stuff.
It was a lot of stuff.
It was like a few different topics there that you covered them all so good.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, but I'm just going to say, just like, so that, because I was taking notes, you talked about unity, right? And as whether and how that should become a part of Joe Biden's early plan, and what his priorities should be.
realistic unity. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I know. So just so everybody's like, what did Nick just talk about there? And you know,
Nick's asking
whether
that too.
whether that unity could kind of like also slide into some potential to keep people or get people to vote for Democrats.
not even vote for
Did I
Democrats,
read
but
that
not
right?
support crazy people. So like
Right. Okay. Just yeah.
they're not so turned off by the Democratic Party that they're willing to sacrifice democracy, right? Or we're not
Right.
alienating people to the extent where I just feel like
And
go ahead.
I like the focus on those people better than the focus that the media has right now on people like the Q freaks. I'm sorry, anybody out there who believes in Q, please seek help. Okay. But yeah, I would much rather focus on what's most likely, 70 million or so of Trump's voters who are not
Right.
that level of crazy.
Yeah, and I do think there's something to be said for that. Like,
What's our phrase again?
parameters.
Oh yes.
I'm sorry.
Normal
I'm about 5 seconds
parameters.
behind you. Our phrase, within normal parameters.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Q folks, you're not there. Get going somewhere.
So my whole perspective on them is that is problematic because I feel like those people are really in danger of turning into like terrorists. Those are the violent, dangerous people. So we should come up with some sort of plan
The
to deal
FBI
with
can
that.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a slightly different view on it. I think that people who were into Q and the other various weird factions that were Trump supporters, I think that there might be like this core bubble of people who were Q, but it definitely branched out to people who were quote unquote not the crazy Trump supporters, who may have voted for Trump, but they weren't the crazy kind. And I think that that's kind of the problem with those weird conspiracies that were bubbling out of there. Like it affected way more people and like had very long tentacles, just sort of brought people into this whole election. Yeah. This election fraud nonsense, this human trafficking thing, which is real, but not the way they think it is. And then all of the stuff about,
Right.
COVID and yada, yada. Like there's just so many little branches that it kind of did. And I think that it's probably very nuanced, like most people are. We're not, what's the word I'm looking for, where everybody's the same. I'm 100% sure that all Trump supporters are not the same. Yeah, girl.
We were arguing the other day about whether Trump supporters are the Borg, so that was.
Yeah, I mean,
We
like
are bored.
I'm so guilty of that. I talk shit about people's level of education, right? And like the level of ignorance that they may or may not have, or all of that stuff. But it's obvious. I mean, you don't like every single voting individual is not the same type of person. So.
Yeah. And to be clear, it was completely within the context of nerdy Star Trek jokes. We weren't actually calling anyone zombies or anything like that.
Yeah.
Well,
Democrats are so evil.
what really upset me, or what I think what really put me off about the whole revelation about just how many Q sympathizers, I guess, that were out there, was the way some of the so-called mainstream Republicans glommed on to these conspiracy theories that Trump and company were promulgating. And my God, let's be honest, if you have a half a brain cell, you could have looked at these accusations and figured out they were bunk from the get-go. Trump appointed judges, left this shit out of court before it even had a chance to sully their court docket. If someone is prone to believe that, you have separated yourself from reality. Now, that having been said, there's absolutely no excuse for senators like Hawley and Cruz to trumpet this. I know they're trying to get political points. I understand that, but still, that's repugnant to glom on to what it's bullshit. Cruz and Hawley both know that it's all bullshit.
Yeah,
but
they're
they
too
use
smart
it to
to
score
believe
cheap
it.
political
They're
points.
opportunists is what they are.
Yeah,
they
they
pan out for them in an election. How much you guys want to bet Ted Cruz runs in 2024? Yeah, and it's not going to work. I personally think it's going to backfire for him, but that's what he's hoping to sort of grab that staunch Trump base and hope that he can win that way.
Yeah.
It's
Well, in Texas, the way the demographics are changing in Texas, he's in trouble, I think. He'll keep some of the Trump support, no doubt, but
Yeah.
a lot of the fringe support we've been talking about, again, those who are within normal parameters but voted for Trump, they're not going to back that shit. I mean, he went full ape shit crazy on us a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not going to forgive him for it. Not that I've had any fondness for him in the first place, because he's a fucking politician. But he's one I had a little bit more respect for than some of the others, based upon what I perceive to be his constitutional knowledge. And again, I think he and Hawley and some of the others, they knew it was bullshit, but they found a way, or thought they found a way, to score some cheap points. So, it just underscores this frustration we have, people like us who watch this and study this perception, correct perception, that this is all a fucking stage, that to quote the movie Chicago, this is all the old razzle dazzle to keep them placated while you pull the puppet strings behind the scenes and give them the illusion that they have a choice in this. It's very frustrating, and yes, it turns people into grumpy old sons of bitches like me.
Yeah.
And
And
here we are.
it further inflames everything, and so you see a real contrast between people calling for unity, and well, everybody's calling for unity on all sides, everybody's calling for it, but unity, I think, is like, it's a really distant prospect. What we need now is to just bring down the temperature, as they say. And I think that Biden, the first way he could do that, which he will, is just by not participating in it. He's not out there with a flamethrower like Trump was. So that will help. But what I'm concerned about is, even if it is true that everything is boring, even compared to the Obama administration, right? Everything is boring. Not a lot seems to be happening out in front besides this impeachment that we have to deal with.
Yeah,
What to do with this, like, this impulse to outrage, this like kind of, high-pitched, high-flying reactivity that has been something that everyone has kind of lived with for the last 4 years. I see it already. Like, there was a thing about a Rolex, kind of as, remember the Diet Coke, right? I'm like, on one side's freaking out about Diet Coke buttons, the other side's freaking out about a Rolex. And it's like, it's the tan suit thing all over again. It was bad during the last 4 years of Obama's term, and it was horrible during Trump, because he would go out there and just create it. If it wasn't happening, he would create through a tweet or a speech or something like that. But people have gotten used to that. They've gotten used to reacting and doom scrolling and getting angry and getting galvanized by every little thing that happens on the news. And if we go into some kind of boring, like George H.W. Bush Part 2 administration without the war, what are people going to do? They still going to act like this?
Yeah. Well, they will, because we have this vacuum that will be created if we don't fill it up on Facebook and Twitter with some kind of drama. I do like, what was it, doom scrolling?
Yes.
That's a good term.
You haven't heard that one?
I have to use that one.
I feel
No,
smart.
I haven't. Man, that's sharp as hell. I like that. Yeah, that's good stuff there. But yeah, we've created these chat forums. Yeah, and we gotta fill them up with some kind of drama, and unfortunately, I think we will, and not the good kind.
That's probably part of our problem in America. We're so filled with this whole entertainment bug and the whole Hollywood thing that we want drama. People want drama. We've had nothing but drama for the past 4 years, and this last year was insane for all of us. I'm perfectly happy to have some boring time so I can just sort of unplug from politics more and more and just get back into, like, things in my own life. I don't feel the need to be plugged in every day, and that's great. It feels good.
Yeah.
So my question is, so you have these both sides outraged, right? So you're talking about certain groups on the left and then the MAGA right?
Well, I think it's what they choose to. I think the outrage thing is kind of a universal issue, not just with far left or far right or any particular group. I just think a lot of people if they're paying attention to politics, if they're locked in at all, are going to have a hard time letting go. And they're going to continue habits that have been not only indulged for the last 4 years, but felt almost existentially necessary, right? And even if you were the happiest Trump supporter celebrating in January 2017, they were still on edge. They were still on defense mode. So we have this issue, and I don't feel a lot of like need to defend Joe Biden. I think he'll be fine without me sticking up for him all the time. He'll survive.
Yeah, basically.
But this has been something that I think is kind of universal to people who are politically paying attention. And it's not always something stupid. That's the thing. It wasn't always something stupid that they were reacting to in that way. Trump supporters had a lot of stuff to be outraged about over the last year with the impeachment and things like that, and all the different investigations, the Mueller report going on for the entire first 3 years, the impeachment going on for the last year, the blame that he was rightfully taking for the way that he handled the coronavirus, and his behavior every single day. The people who voted for him and chose to support him were in a position where they had to be on defense about his behavior, about self-created problems. And then on the left, of course, outrage every single day for the same things, but seen from a different angle. So I really don't think that this is a part of the left and a part of the right. I think that this is characteristic of the entire like tuned in political junkie people, or people who had been enthusiastic voters in 2016.
Do you think it's driven by the media?
I think it's indulged by the media. I don't think it's created by the media.
Do you think it's exacerbated?
It creates, exactly, exacerbated is a good word, Nick, in terms of that. The media feeds upon controversy. If it, if it bleeds, it leads. Well, no, if it's interesting, it leads. It doesn't have to bleed as long as it's interesting. And let's be honest, drama and conflict is always interesting. We're humans. I mean, that's always going to be the case. The thing is, we're generating a lot of the drama now by I say we, the people, and we have these ideal platforms that have been created for us to amplify our voice of discontent and to find like-minded people who feel the same things. Unfortunately, again, we have gone outside normal parameters over the past 4 years, and the old Overton window of acceptable behavior has been moved mightily by this phenomenon called Trump. I think collectively, even except for the few true crazies out there, I think collectively we are ready for a brief yawn. How long that will be is anyone's guess, but I think collectively most people are breathing or pining for just and then we'll resume it. Hopefully not to the level of vitriol that we've become sadly accustomed to, but I think collectively everyone is looking to Biden, even hardcore Republicans, as a chance to go, hang on, let's get our breath back here, and hopefully that'll happen, and hopefully we'll all be a little better on the other side.
So where do you guys see the Republican Party going now? So Trump's out of the spotlight. He doesn't have his big megaphone anymore. Twitter is like a completely different place, to be totally honest. It's almost bizarre. So, I mean, he is, he still polls extremely high with Republicans. The Republican politicians are still obviously largely defending him and his behavior, even though it's blatantly indefensible. So how do you get away from Trumpism, and do you think it's realistic to think that the Republican Party can overcome this sort of, fanatical state that it's in right now?
I think it's going to take a little bit of honor, but also strangely manipulation, just sort of subtly manipulating that voting base back to a sense of normalcy. Because how like an outrageous thing would have been said or done by Trump, right? And within about 2-3 weeks, the facts aren't really weighing anything on these people's minds. And it's just kind of been like retold into some other direction. And for some reason they buy it. I just feel like if that's the type of impression that they can take from the leader called Trump, then they could probably do that easily with other Republican leaders. But I think they could do it in a smart way to sort of bring people back down to some sense of normalcy or honesty or truth or something. Does that make any sense? I feel like they can be
Honesty,
manipulated.
normalcy,
And I feel
truth,
like you can
politics,
easily
come on.
manipulate them.
So
I feel like you can manipulate
who is
them
they?
into, what's that?
who's they? Like, who do you think these people, the people who are gonna sort of manipulate them are? It
Oh, no,
would have to
I'm
be,
not saying they exist. I'm saying that Republican leaders in general can
Okay.
take this opportunity
That's what they
to
should
subtly
do.
move them back in a more sane direction.
hypothetically.
With
Okay.
subtle, yeah, well, with subtle manipulation, and their media, the right-wing media, has to play along.
So what
like-
is the likelihood of that happening? I
Yeah.
feel like it's really low, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
you have people like Mitt Romney and Justin Amash. I don't know how to say his name. Amash, what is it? And even like Lynn Cheney sometimes. Liz Cheney. Which one is it? Liz.
Yeah.
Which is like,
Liz.
surprising. Yeah, it was very. Lynn is her mother, right?
yes.
Yes. Okay, that's why I always mix the two up. But I think right now what's happening is the Republicans are learning like all the wrong lessons from the Democrats, and they're splintering into this establishment, not establishment, rhino, real Republican kind of split, which makes very little sense. And if you're not, like, apparently Ted Cruz is not establishment, right? But Mitt Romney is, or so they're starting to divide so that they can, depending, I guess, on their state or their district or their political prospects or their donors, decide whether they're going to stand up there and pretend to be the honorable gentleman or stand up there and just act like the rat fuckers that they are. And so we know where Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz stand. But what Heather says is absolutely true. That is how it needs to happen. It needs to happen from the top. Hopefully, Fox News will follow suit. But as long as they remain divided on that in ways that are high profile enough, then the news media has no reason but to inflame tensions. And they're just going to learn the same lessons about trying to herd cats that the Democrats are still working through right now.
So I recently heard a Republican strategist talk about this, and they said that if let's say Mitt Romney in like a hypothetical election ran against Donald Trump in a primary, they estimated that Romney would probably get about 15% of the vote and Trump would probably get about 85.
Damn.
And I tend to agree with that. Apparently Chuck does not. But
I'm just blown away by that. I don't doubt it, but
gotcha. No, so that's what he said. I tend to agree with it, and I think that the evidence is you can tell. I mean, the House of Representatives, for instance, how many of them voted for impeachment for something that was beyond impeachable? I think you had like 10 Republicans, and then in the Senate you had you have at this point probably like 6 people saying that they'll support a conviction. And I think it goes
right.
like we can get into the constitutional question as to whether or not you can impeach a president after they leave office. That's fine. That's a totally legitimate argument. But in terms of whether or not Trump did something impeachable, not just based on whether or not he inflamed an insurrection, because I think he did. But if you want to argue that technically, because it doesn't reach that criminal threshold, that's fine. But he also went on a 2-month excursion through time and space, trying to convince all of America and use his political power to, manipulate state politicians and legislatures and all of his followers, which eventually culminated in what you saw.
His phone call to the Georgia secretary. Yeah,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
gotcha.
Again, I know I'm behind you people, but I don't know when to interject here.
No
So
worries, man.
this is going to sound weird on the final cut because um, anyway, that yeah, hell, that call to the Georgia Secretary of State was an impeachable offense in my book. And I have a high bar for impeachment. I did not agree with the first impeachment of Trump. I didn't agree with the impeachment of Bill Clinton. To me, impeachment is for the worst of the worst. That call to the Georgia Secretary of State was the
Oh,
worst of the corruption. It was everything that is wrong with Trump, everything that is wrong with party politics. It was repugnant, and I hope there is a way he will face some kind of sanctions for that. That's an attempt to subvert the Constitution, an attempt to pervert the Constitution. Everything about that effort was just offensive to someone like me who loves the Constitution, loves the groundwork that it lays for peaceful transfer of power.
You're freezing up,
Oh,
big
if
guy.
we're losing you. Don't you think that
And
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, and just quickly to get to Nick's question about what this means for Republicans, they're in trouble. They are in trouble. I've said on several of these newscasts, it's going to take not just the Republican Party, but conservative thought, a generation to separate itself from Trump. Even though Trump is not remotely conservative, people tie him to conservatism. And therefore, it's going to take a long time to wipe that stain off of just conservative thought. And as someone who obviously leans conservative libertarian, god damn, that's going to suck. But that's the price that you pay. And as far as the Republican Party is concerned, well, we've already seen the factions forming. The newer Republicans are going to have to treat Trump supporters with kid gloves because they are radioactive. You want their votes, but you don't want anybody to see you courting them for their votes. You're going to have to play a very, very delicate blame because the hardcore Trump supporters are a significant voting bloc, but they're also radioactive to those who are not members of that radioactive bloc. So yeah, you have to be courting the votes, but not look too damn obvious about it. So yeah, I would not want to be a Republican in the next couple of election cycles. It's going to be bloody difficult.
They probably need some fresh blood, to be honest. Someone who's not tainted by this whole establishment thing, who can come in
Sure.
there with some charisma, because that will get their attention, and just speak on like the policy issues. For instance, there were a lot of people who had voted for Trump twice because they liked his policy issues.
Right.
Although a lot of us are looking from the outside in saying, what even are they? But for them, it was there. And I think that they could probably find someone who would do that, also be charismatic, not establishment, but not crazy. So, I mean, who knows when that'll happen, but I do think that's a possibility.
Afra, you were going to say something before?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was though, so
sorry.
you can come back to me. Oh, I was gonna say like, and I think that Heather kind of covered this. You know, that his behavior since he lost the election has been ridiculous, like a joke, a sideshow, embarrassing. But then there are people who saw that as like a call to arms because they believed that lie. And it's very like if they didn't believe that lie, they would have seen it as the tantrum that it was, and the tantrum that it continues to be. He's not done yet. He made some kind of an announcement today about his post-presidency or something. But then everybody, you know, I guess I'm not able to see it from the other side. I'm not able to see his behavior as honorable or even adult-like.
It's not.
And I think that, you know, I'm not a person who normally has trouble putting myself in other people's shoes, but that I cannot see.
So I don't understand it either. But I do. One thing that I think is important is, you know, I think probably all of us to some extent have spent a lot of the last 4 years saying, you know, this kind of behavior is dangerous. this is
Mm-hmm.
gonna, something bad's gonna happen eventually. He's radicalizing people. It's not just Twitter. Lying like this, all these conspiracy theories, all that kind of stuff is gonna eventually turn into something bad. And that's what happened, right? I
Mhm.
mean, he sort of prepped these people for 4 or 5 years and sort of separated them or detached them from reality and made them, sort of
Yeah, you
worsen
would have
the,
to be,
yeah.
you would have, you're right. You would have to be quite detached from reality to honest to God believe that you could walk into the Capitol and disrupt a constitutionally prescribed process
Mhm.
and in the most unconstitutional way in the world, force a president to be reelected. You have to have 0 feet on solid, sane ground to think that you're going to do that. And Trump created a lot of that. Now, you mentioned Afra did that you don't turn yourself in their shoes and figure out what the allegiance to Trump is. I can almost understand how that forms. Now, I cannot understand anyone who worships a politician, period. I don't get that.
Right.
But I do understand some of the frustration that Trump exploited. Trumpism
Yeah.
might have started with Trump, but the fuel behind that mob on January 6th had been building long before Donald Trump announced his run for
Oh, that
presidency.
part I completely get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that the fuel predated Trump by quite a bit,
Mhm.
but no, I mean you would have to you have to be willing to suspend all of your common sense, all of reality, to look at
Mm.
We lost you again, Chuck.
this man and say, "We did that. You're going to do that." You would have to be so divorced from reality that no, in that respect, I could not put my feet in their shoes.
It's the willing suspension of disbelief. It's a term that we use for when you're watching a play on stage, that you're supposed to tell your mind that what you're watching is actually someone's living room instead of a bunch of people on a stage. Even though you could see the audience members, you could smell them, and there's scaffolding everywhere. And I think a lot of people did that, decided to suspend their disbelief about Trump because they liked what he was saying. They knew he was kind of a clown and kind of went out there and pretended to be a mob boss and pretended to be rich. And that was okay because he was saying the right things. It's at some point it made the jump from the suspension of disbelief to, full on I believe this, and that became a kind of reality. And I think in that sense the media really was responsible, for that, for keeping for in more mainstream sources, for kind of legitimizing that, talking about it as though it were normal to govern by tweet and things like that, and in other sources to put out like just absolute disinformation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, so Biden, does
Yeah.
he tweet? He doesn't tweet, right?
He
Oh, he
tweeted
tweets.
today from the normal White House account
Right.
at POTUS.
Yeah.
But it's
It'll
very
take him
generic.
for,
Within
years,
normal
stuff, I'm
parameters.
sure. Because I remember when Obama tweeted for the first time, I'm like, the president has a Twitter account? It was so weird. And then here comes Trump.
Yeah, really.
Nonstop. 3 a.m. golden toilet tweets.
So what do you guys think about the impeachment process? And more specifically, so there's sort of this strategic question from the Democratic side. Do you think it's a mistake for Democrats to do go through the trial in the Senate and to push for all of this, because it's going to just kind of focus attention on Trump so much and continue to kind of feed him all that publicity that kind of empowers him?
No, I don't think it's a mistake. I think it's necessary. I think it's necessary for the nation and necessary for universally. I think we have to put our foot down and make our mark on this and say, this is not who we are. This will never happen again. this needs to be removed. We got to make sure that he never comes back. Like, I think that's so important right now. Our standing in the world is just like, we plummeted because of that. And I think that's really important that we stay face, and also important that we, you know, make it a point that we're not going to let this happen ever again.
Not only in terms of like protective measures and reparative, because I agree with Heather that the international community needs to see that we are actually being adults and acting serious now. But just as like a fact-finding mission, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I feel like we don't know. And I do wish that the House felt it had enough time, which it really did, to actually hold the hearings there. And so that we could have seen some stuff go on in the House and then have the trial, the Senate also hold a trial. Because the last time he was impeached with a trial and not exonerated, but acquitted without one. And so this time he's impeached without a trial, and now he's going to be either convicted or exonerated with one. So it seems to me like a continuation.
Didn't they have a Senate trial for the Mueller report? I remember Chief Justice John Roberts presiding. Was that in the House or the Senate?
No, that wasn't for the Mueller report. That was just, he presided over like the kind of sort of the parliamentary procedures of what the Senate did with the Ukraine trial, but it wasn't, they didn't like call witnesses. It wasn't, and the argument was, well, the House did that. If they had wanted all of these witnesses, if they had wanted more, they should have waited before sending the article. So John Roberts was there.
It was not a full-blown.
It wasn't a Senate trial.
Not a full-blown trial.
It was a debate, but it wasn't a trial. So
I'll say this. Again, I'm sorry, the deadgum delay here.
Yeah, no, I was just to wrap up, I think it's very important as a fact-finding mission to know everything that went down over the last 2 months, to really put it out there, make the senators have to face it, have to answer for it, because if it's just something that the New York Times and Fox News in tandem are going to examine, then people are going to choose what they want to believe and what they don't want to believe. And even if it doesn't lead anywhere, because I really don't think Trump is running again, I don't. He's old. Yeah. Even if it doesn't lead anywhere, it shows, like Heather said, that we're serious. And it will get all of the information out there that people need.
Yeah, that too. And I'm kind of glad that it's not happening until February. For that reason.
Well, true. Yeah, like we said earlier, we all collectively need that moment to go, let's, take our next step here. So holding that off until February is probably a very good idea. You can make an excellent case for wanting to just say, fuck it, let's move on. Don't worry about this anymore. But there are some tangible benefits to going ahead with this. Certainly the most obvious of which is the message you guys said it sends to everyone that we take this seriously and you can't do this. But then again, you can say, well, this is just going to give him more publicity. If we're looking for a closure on the Trump era, the last thing you want to do is to bring it up again, more partisanship, hear what the fuck Hawley has to say about all this and give them their 6.5 minutes in front of a mic to make another ass of themselves. So I see it both ways, but I'm inclined to agree with you guys in that we follow through with this, particularly because of that damn phone call to the Secretary of State of Georgia. As you can tell, that pissed me off quite a bit. And that needs to be punished in some degree. There's only so much we can do. I mean, he's already out of office. You can't kick him out of an office he no longer holds, but we can withhold some of the perks of being a president. I think he'll still get Secret Service protection no matter what. That's the way I read the Constitution. But he will be officially sanctioned and he will not be able to run for office again. Yes, probably not going to anyway, but it is important that we put our foot down and say what he did was wrong and we're not going to accept it.
So I actually agree with you guys. I agree with what Afar said too. I think it's important that we hold them accountable. I think it's important that we get all the senators on record voting. I think we need to get the information out there. I mean, to me, it's indefensible, right? I'm sure they'll come up with some creative arguments and we'll all watch it with frustration. But I agree. I don't
Well,
think that they'll get enough votes to convict, although I think they'll probably get like 8, maybe 10 Republicans, but not, I don't think they'll get the 16 or 17 they need.
I have a
Um,
feeling that some will just abstain, that they
Yeah.
just won't vote.
Right. That's
So,
possible.
but that'll be a good thing.
And it's going to be a little bit explosive. This is quick, I promise, because the impeachment article is so narrow to insurrection, but people are going to want to talk about, like what Chuck brought up with the call to the Georgia Secretary of State. They're trying to fire the acting AG, and you're going to have these fireworks, where people are saying that's not within the parameters of normal parameters. No, that's not within the parameters of the impeachment article. We can't talk about that. So it'll make the news. People will be talking about it, even though it's, they were very narrow in framing this impeachment article.
So, yeah, I mean, you could make the case that it's all kind of lumped together, right? I mean, but there's another avenue too. I mean, they could go 14th Amendment, right? Because there's a clause in the 14th Amendment that addresses insurrection, and in that clause it specifically says if a office holder commits or participates in insurrection, they are not allowed to run for office again. So, I mean, if this fails,
Yeah,
that's
I would say that. I would just as an observer here, I would think that would be a fool's errand based upon what would have to happen after the fact. I mean, I'm not talking about Trump. I mean, I guess you could try to apply it to Trump, but I've seen a lot of people suggesting that, Hawley and Cruz and a lot of the other congressmen who glommed on to Trump's message here be the 14th Amendment. I don't think that's going to, number one, it'll never stick, and number two, again, more needless division at this point. We just need to move on. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can finish that up, but yeah, let's not go needlessly chasing anything.
So I guess my whole thing is, if the impeachment and conviction doesn't work out, we're going to sort of go through that process anyway. And I'm pretty sure that in order to, I don't know how you would go about it. I guess you would have to pass some sort of legislation, prevent Trump from running for office again. You would have to go through the process, but I think it would just be a majority vote. So you wouldn't need 60. That would be the advantage to it. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so.
I'm not sure anything short of an impeachment or anything of that equal protection under the law would allow a legislative branch to determine that any specific person is ineligible to run for office. Anyway, it's going to be a kind of a self-defeating point anyway. Like Afra said, Trump's on up there, and I can't imagine him being of any kind of health in a couple of years to run. So, but yeah, I see what you're saying, but I don't think Congress as a legislative body can vote someone out.
Review that clause and then get back to me, see what you think, because it's pretty. I mean, I don't know if you've read it before. Maybe you have. I don't know.
Which clause are you talking about?
So it's the third of the 14th Amendment.
Oh, the 14th. Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Oh,
yeah. I'm talking about in terms of Congress acting as a legislative body like they are, and determining that, John Q. Citizen, this guy right here, can no longer run for public office. I'm not sure how that would play short of a finding of an impeachable offense. That would be a judicial function,
Gotcha.
I do believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think that's up to the courts to decide, or I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a constitutional scholar like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz.
Well, just to totally change the subject, Biden also has articles of impeachment waiting for him.
By Marjorie.
Yes, Marjorie.
Oh, that freaking idiot from Georgia. Good Lord. Guys, I'm going to say this.
Georgia did so much for us, but they couldn't get rid of her. I mean, really.
She won because somebody was dead.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I just very quickly, let me
Oh,
get
you're
this
freezing.
out
You're frozen again.
Am I back yet?
You're
We
back.
can't hear you, buddy.
Am I back yet?
You're back now.
Okay, just very quickly. The effect it had on my brain listening to that many politicians talk one after the other. We have got some of the stupidest people in society that are serving in Congress these days. That was a motley crew of misfits and dumbasses, and they have authority over us. That should scare the hell out of everybody. That's all I'll say.
So can I just say
A
one
better
thing?
education, Chuck.
The what is her last name? Marjorie Taylor or something?
Green, is it green?
Marjorie Green. Right?
Taylor Green. I
So
think
you
it
have
is.
these crazy politicians, and I don't know if this is just a correlation, but you have this in Arizona too, right? These really extreme
Yeah.
Republicans, politicians that are sort of hurting themselves in their own party. I mean, there's a reason why Biden won Arizona, Biden won Georgia, and we have two Democratic senators in both formerly Republican states. And
Mhm.
starting in 2016 or 2017 rather, we had two Republican senators in Arizona, two Republican senators in Georgia, and a Republican president. So there's something going on in those states with the Republican parties that isn't really
Yeah.
healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah,
What
I agree.
were her articles of impeachment brought on anyways? Does anybody
I think it was
know?
incompetence. It was something. I'll look it up. You go on and talk, and I think it was incompetence though.
How do
It
you
was
how
like
do you,
day
you
one,
impeach
she had a
somebody for
video.
incompetence? What does that even? Don't you have to have a specific?
That
I guess
sounds
you don't.
normal
Yeah,
day.
there's nothing to do with that.
I mean, it's just
Well,
such
yeah,
a.
again, you can impeach. You can impeach for anything that you really want. I mean, it's a criminal type charge. I've heard of people being criminally incompetent. I don't see how in the hell you could possibly prove that, though.
I mean, we
Particularly
didn't
since
try
he's
that
only
with
been on
Trump
the
when he
job
died.
he's only been on the job for a few days. If he was incompetent, I
Okay,
don't
so
think we would even know about him.
I was wrong. It's not about incompetence. It's about he has first of all, the text is not available yet, or it wasn't as of yesterday. And the other thing is that it's about abuse of power and Hunter Biden. That supposedly he abused power as a vice president, because we all know how much power they have, and will abuse his power in order to protect Hunter Biden and the Ukraine Biden scandal.
So this is
Whatever that
obviously just nonsense. That's
Yes,
not
it
going to
is.
go anywhere.
I just thought it's recent news, so I thought I would bring it up. And another thing, if you're ready for it, there are two other things that are big news right now. To political junkies, they're exciting. To the rest of you, probably not so much. What are they going to do about the filibuster and the possibility of DC statehood in the coming weeks? What do you
So
think?
I am a proponent of DC and Puerto Rican statehood. I
Woo!
am an
Look at you,
opponent.
progressive you.
I just really hate Republicans.
You really don't. You don't.
Oh, I do. I like conservatives. I hate Republicans.
Okay, that makes sense.
This distinction. I am an opponent of getting rid of the filibuster. I think it's a bad move, and I think it's a bad move. Imagine if during the Trump administration and during the early years when the Republicans had the House and Senate, there was no filibuster, and imagine Mitch McConnell was willing to get rid of it. We would be the country would be tipped on its face, the healthcare system, everything. It would be awful. So slowing
I
down the
don't
process, as frustrating as it is, dealing with the obstruction and the insanity and all of that stuff, I get it. And maybe you can at least attempt to modify the filibuster process where maybe it doesn't cover as many things, so you can at least have some function in Congress. But getting rid of it completely will.
It's a slippery slope. Yeah.
It is. I mean,
I'm
is.
pro, but it's not for the reasons that, to get things through faster.
Okay.
So I think that the filibuster, as currently conceived, allows politicians to not do their jobs. It protects them. It doesn't protect us. So I could see what you're saying, Nick, about like, if we didn't have the filibuster during the Obama years or during the Trump years, we'd be in bigger trouble. I'm not totally sure that I agree with that. I think if people had to stand, I'm not saying get rid of the filibuster altogether. I'm saying they should do their fucking jobs. Stand up there and talk for 12 hours. Explain to the American people why you're filibustering what you're filibustering. Make people have votes, right? And if you're not going to make people have a vote on something, at least hash it out. All this allows them to do is just take a vote, like we vote that we filibustered, and then go home and never have to be accountable for what they choose to vote on or not vote on. And to me, that means that maybe over the last 4 to 8 years, people would have tuned into that rather than their favorite fucking news network and actually heard, or you know what, Chuck, back me up, Chuck. Make them work, right? Make them work. All they do is campaign. So like maybe it would have been the same exact political climate with or without the filibuster, and we would be in worse trouble. I do get that as a consequence, but also maybe they would have had the opportunity to actually have these discussions and show that they're working and show that they're doing something. And it could have changed hearts and minds, not reading green eggs and ham, of course. And I also agree with the idea that maybe you can do something where you get rid of the filibuster for some things and not for others.
Yeah. So you would agree that it could be more of a
judges was
done,
wrong.
yeah,
modification.
we've done that with
They
judges.
should get up there and talk. They should be forced, at least for most things, if they're going to refuse a vote, to get up there and talk about it and put their fucking asses on the line for what they would do and what they do believe in. Because all that this does is protect them.
So not green eggs.
I'm very passionate about
it. 100-page essay or something. Like these are politicians and they're supposed to be smart enough to presenting all of those facts. So
that's a fair position.
I like the fact the idea about behind the filibuster is that the Senate is supposed to be the more deliberative body of the two houses of Congress. They are supposed to be the ones that kind of cool the passion that sometimes comes from the House. And I do like the filibuster from that standpoint, insofar as it makes it difficult to pass difficult things, and I like that. People will say, well, we're a democracy and we should, 50% should, 51 senators should have a say over this, that, and the other thing. Well, of course, we're not a democracy in that respect, but also it makes people think, it makes you work. We do so much in our world of politics to get that magic 50.1% figure because we can use that 50.1% to dominate the other 49.9. I like the idea that at some point during this process, you've got to have more than just 50.1% support, particularly when we're talking about a significant issue. Now, as for DC and Puerto Rico statehood, that's so damn political. If they were going to vote Republican, Democrats would be against it. Because they're going to vote Democrat, Republicans are against it.
Can't we give them Guam or something? And that would help?
I don't know if Guam is leaning MAGA.
I think no, but I think it's right leaning. There's some territory that.
So is Puerto Rico, though. They have a lot of Republicans.
Yeah, you don't know because Puerto Rico's government is always very split. You might have like the mayor of San Juan's a Democrat and the governor of Puerto Rico is a Republican. You really don't, they're kind of a lot like New York in that way.
DC though is about as left wing as you can possibly. It's like a 90% liberal or something crazy.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's 3 out of well, we already go in the presidential election. You're already put
again.
Oh no.
That sucks, man.
The 3 again. We're talking about the filibuster power in the Senate. If you add 2 congressmen from DC, 2 from Puerto Rico, then all of a sudden, if you're in the minority party, that filibuster sure looks a hell of a lot better to make sure that you don't have something very bad pushed down because you could get, what, 54 senators on board with it.
And by all means, filibuster. Please do filibuster, but don't just vote to not have to put yourself out there. And that's how Mitch McConnell has used it. And it's how his predecessor used it, of course, too, to protect and have this like artificial sense of unity amongst, you know, his what do they call it?
So what I don't understand is, okay, so
Oh.
I think there's a pretty good argument for,
Caucus. That was the word, caucus.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was still thinking too.
I think there's a pretty good argument on, you know, opposing getting rid of the filibuster for the reasons that we said. But why can't we just modify the system? If the Senate is able to sort of just create its own rules at any time, right? Which they obviously are. Why don't they just modify it so it makes the process, you know, more functional, right? But not to the point where, you know, Bernie Sanders is getting everything he wants, or you know, his, I don't know, who would be the analogous Bernie Sanders on the Republican side? Oh, who's that asshole from Kentucky? Rand
I
Paul.
don't have anyone.
Yes,
that's
Rand
remotely
Paul.
close.
It's definitely Rand Paul.
Chuck,
Well,
that's a
like-
great picture of you, pal.
Sorry, we're laughing at you.
You froze again, Chuck, and the picture was just perfect.
It was
You just had this-
perfect. You had a big smile.
Man.
So anyway, I gotta get going because I promised my wife I'd go to Target, which is
Oh, fun.
Woo!
That's a big night out in COVID times.
Yeah.
I got my vaccine right here.
I'm
Really?
so stoked for
Aw,
you.
That's
Have you had
cool.
any side effects yet? Upset stomach, fever, nothing? Yeah.
I
was
ran
at-
3 miles today. I didn't feel anything.
I was at the car dealership today,
Yeah.
and dude was a Democrat, and we were talking on Trump and everything else, right? But he doesn't want to get the vaccine.
I've heard that too.
There's
He's
a
all
lot of
political.
people like that, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, a lot of people aren't going to take it, and I'm like, dude, we need like 70 to 75%, you know, people to get this for herd immunity. He's like, oh, that's great for all those people, you know. Yeah, everybody else go get it, but not me, not me. So we were talking, and I told him I would mention it today.
I was really nervous. I was gonna have one of those whatever they're called, reactions.
Anaphylactic.
Yeah.
Electric shock, yeah.
So like for the first hour, I was super anxious. But,
Oh gosh, I guess I have to worry about that, don't I? Well, I'm allergic to kiwi like that. Kiwi will make my throat swell up. So you just bring a lot of Benadryl with you and tell them
They don't
that
make you
want
feel
ibuprofen.
better. I mean, you sit down with the person who does it, and they're like, "If this happens, make sure you immediately call the rescue." And it's like,
Aren't you the fucking rescue?
yeah,
I'm
right.
pretty sure the allergic reactions happen instantly, and so
They do.
they'll be able to
Yeah.
treat you where you are. I mean, maybe not if you're in CVS, but if you're at a clinic or something.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
why
what they say.
don't I just hang around here for about an hour? We'll see what happens, and then
They make you stay there for 15 minutes, or at least they did with me. It's
Okay.
15
Okay.
minutes afterwards. But yeah, I get my second one in 4 weeks, so I'm gonna be invincible.
That's exciting. I can't freaking wait, dude. I'm so excited.
I will never qualify for it because I go nowhere and I am essential to nothing. So.
So you're still a New York resident, right?
Yeah.
So my brother's wife was telling me that she ended up signing him up for, I mean, he doesn't qualify, but she found a way to sign him up because they don't make you show qualifications until you actually go to the place.
Uh-huh.
So the date's coming up, and I don't think that he's a little overweight, so they were going to try to utilize that. And she figured that
Oh,
maybe the
man.
qualifications would become more like they would expand once they got more vaccinations in. But I think they're actually low in New York now. They were like way above, and now they're below.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an idea. You could always try to like maneuver yourself in there. Get a
I don't need it. Like, I don't go anywhere. So I legitimately go nowhere. I'm not going to take it from somebody else right now.
that's true.
I cannot wait. I can't wait to not feel like I'm going to bring it home. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you can still bring it home, but like, I think I'm at the second tier, and so is my mother. And as long as her and I are both vaccinated, then our household will be way safer. My
Mhm.
kids will probably be fine. They probably had it when I had it, and they had no symptoms,
Yeah.
you know? So
Mhm.
as long as that new variant doesn't come, I mean, I don't know. I haven't read too much about it, but I hear that it's affecting kids
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So that's a little scary. I don't know. I'm excited.
Can you
By
guys
the end
hear
of this
that?
year.
I'm excited for you. Congratulations, Nick. I'm super excited for you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, guys, thank you, everybody, for coming. This was a lot of fun, and we'll be back soon. I'll see you on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
Don't get
fighting.
another ban.
Or MeWe. Check out MeWe, guys. I'm telling you.